Now, go ahead.
I think we're live.
Did you click live? Okay.
It looks live.
Yeah, we're live.
Live. Hello, humans. This is Robin Bartletti here with Whitney and Dr. Chuck Severance. Whitney Cobor is facilitator of Human MOOC, PhD student at University of North Texas, and all-around swell gal. And she's going to introduce Dr. Chuck.
Thanks, Robin. And Robin is also facilitating Human MOOC with us, along with Maha Alfrey and Dave Hallman, who are typing away on Twitter for those of you that are joining us on the back channel with the hashtag HumanMOOC. I'm so excited to get to introduce Dr. Chuck Severance from the University of Michigan. I had the opportunity to chat with him at the Sloan Conference in, I think, October it was this year. Usually it's November. And we had quite the chat, and he shared with me a book chapter that he was writing for Kurt Bonk's book that's coming out this June, I believe. And so that's really kind of the impetus for us having this hangout today, because Dr. Chuck's book chapter for Kurt Bonk's book was really focused on instructor presence and the use of video. And so without further ado, oh, I should say one more thing. I found out that you're keynoting the LA K15 conference on Wednesday.
I am. Are you going?
No, I can't be there, but I'm so excited for you because that's an amazing conference.
Yeah, it's either going to be my best keynote ever or my worst keynote ever. So you'll see. It's a very risky keynote. I could just give slides and talk about MOOCs and show graphs, or I could do something crazy. So I'm going to do something crazy about prediction.
Awesome. Well, we love that about you. So we're expecting crazy tonight, too, by the way. Robin was tempting him with karaoke. I don't think we're going to get to hear him sing tonight, but maybe you could take us like back in time to the late 70s. Tell us a little bit about how you ended up in media and, you know, building software to help kind of enhance instructor presence.
Well, sort of. I had a friend, and so many things in my life end up being, I had one friend that said, I got this cool job, would you like to work with me as well? And so when I was a senior in high school, I had this friend, and he said, I got this really sweet job working at a television station. All you could do is like load these cassettes into this cassette machine. There's a stack, and you get paid for like 4 hours, and you work for 30 minutes, and then you wait till 11 o'clock, and then you got to load these things in, and they just tell you when to load, and that's your job. And how would you like to come work at a television station? And so at a very young age, I was on the inside of media, and I wondered at the ease of which you could sort of influence people through media-like things. You know, in the 70s, it was, you know, television, NBC, CBS, and ABC, and I did camera work, I did directing, I did small amount of news gathering, but I just sort of absorbed everything about that. And I've been sort of fascinated with media ever since, and went and got a minor in my undergraduate in media, and then the web came, and and smart people, not I was the one that made the observation, Marshall McLuhan, many others, Kevin Hughes, observed that this web was media, and I'm like, great, this is about influencing people, this is about getting your ideas out, this is about packaging and influencing. And so I was lucky. Again, I had another friend, and we were talking at the bar. Happened to be a person that was very high up in cable television in 1994. And he said, you guys are funny. You should talk on TV. And so he was our executive producer. We had a television show called Internet TCI, which was it was product placement for cable modems, and it went all around the country. We were in San Francisco, the first talk show on the internet in San Francisco from mid-Michigan, and that was fun. And sort of since then, I mean, I 95, 96, 97, I built my first class. The chapter starts talking about that, and worked on Sakai open source learning management system, thinking that would revolutionize education by just writing one more learning management system, and I think we know that one more learning management system no longer is the way to revolutionize teaching and learning, so I'm back in teaching. And then the MOOC revolution came around, and I sent a note to Coursera tech support and said, you should let me teach in your program. Um, and and I forwarded the note to my dean, and he said, we are secretly negotiating with Coursera right now. Do you really want to teach? And I'm like, yeah, let me teach. And so I'm like, I stumble into these things just totally lucky, and I was on the 15th course on Coursera. And I, from the beginning, have said that Coursera is really more media than teaching. And so I was really happy to see that Coursera is on JetBlue now, because I believe that I said early on, I said that Daphne is building a Netflix channel for to let us get as teachers interesting and exciting stuff. And so I've always seen this whole teaching and media thing all connected together, and so that's where I find myself.
Very nice. I like the story that you tell about Syncomatic, and I don't remember what year that was. Was that 98?
Well, there's good news and bad news in Syncomatic. So Syncomatic would be like 96, 97, 98, 99, and then I quit my job because of Syncomatic eventually. And so Syncomatic was, one of the things that the TV show afforded us was we would carry a camera around and stick it in people's faces, and we would say, hey, talk to us. And people like Tim Berners-Lee would have visions of the web. We talked about the real networks. We interviewed that guy, one of the founders of Real Networks, and even before we were streaming video, when the only thing you could stream was like bad AM quality audio, they were talking about how the company Real was thinking about how this could be used for teaching. And I'm like, oh, I got to do that. That's it. So I was lucky. I mean, I was just 2 years ahead of everybody else. I mean, we're talking to the founder of Reel before Reel's all that popular. We're talking about like, oh, we've had 20,000 downloads or something like that. And so I always have this head start just because I'm stumbling and lucky in the right places. And so I decided to dig into Reel and synchronize slides. And the earliest was, so I was teaching a fully streaming, either the first or second person in the world to teach a fully streaming class over the internet. Except back then it was 14.4 modems, and it was streaming audio and flipping GIF slides that were synchronized to it, and a really disturbing picture of me in the upper left-hand corner because we couldn't stream video. And then 6 months later, with 28 modems, we could stream video. I mean, that's crazy. Oh, there's the picture. Now that one's the picture that you're showing. The picture that you're showing, Robin. That's not the disturbing picture. That's the picture of me with real actual video of me. The disturbing picture just looks really black and white, and it's really scary looking. And so I built this thing, and I taught this course, and this was where I first started feeling the sense of loneliness as a teacher, because I was having all this fun. I was building software. I was building software to produce the media, because there was nothing like Camtasia back then. I mean, I predate Camtasia by a decade. I effectively built two versions of Camtasia long before probably the people that founded Camtasia were even born or whatever. And so I was having so much fun, and the picture that you just showed was me in a studio. They had this studio, and I had people filming me, and they were using my software to produce all the media, and it was just the funnest thing in the world. And then at some point I got good at it, and the class was good, and the students were learning something. It took me about 1.5 years to get the class right, like the third time I did it, and then I realized, like, crap, this isn't so fun anymore. It was fun making it, but it wasn't fun just running it, because I never saw the students. And because I was so freaked out that they were so happy and I wasn't, I had a midterm exam. And I thought, I want to see my students, so I forced a face-to-face midterm exam. All my students were on campus at this time. It was more like I could stream it on campus. I really wasn't outreaching, because it was a 4-credit class, a class for credit. And so I said, you have to come, as if that was a security thing. I didn't care about the security. And then it got worse when I gave that exam, because they walked in and they already knew me. They knew my jokes, they knew my personality, they knew everything, because I'd put that all into the class, and I didn't know them, and I felt really bad because I didn't know them, and they felt I should know them, right? And that was the last time I ever taught that class. And then I spent some time trying to give Syncomatic away, and the university that I worked at said that it was too valuable and I couldn't give it away as open source, and so I quit that university, went to a university, and then I rewrote the software, Clipboard 2000, which was a Macintosh version of the same thing, which had scribbling. Again, it was Camtasia 6 or 7 years before Camtasia even existed. And I tried to give that away to Apple and put it into Apple operating systems in 2000, 2001. And they had a thing called Video Producer like 4 years later that was crap compared to the thing that I had in 2001. And they just never found that interesting. So that was the Syncomatic experience, which taught me a lot, and I really enjoyed it, but it did make it so I wanted to meet my students a lot.
I'm pausing for effect. Hey, Robin, did you have a question?
Well, when I was reading through your article, one of the things that struck me was your approach to MOOCs, and I'm just going to quote you here because I love this. It says, "My goal was not to teach them everything, but instead to simply influence their personal learning arc by opening their minds to new ideas." That is so awesome. Can you say some more about that?
Well, first off, I used to think that was only me that felt that way. I thought everyone else was going to be like, oh, I'm going to teach all this hard stuff and make it really difficult and teach them computer science and do the stuff. But at the Coursera Partners Conference a week and a half ago, I found that a surprising number of people feeling exactly the same way. That there's a woman from University of Chicago that teaches neuro something or other, brain stuff, right? And brain stuff's hard, and yet she didn't want to teach the hard stuff. She just wanted to take the average person and give them some sense of what neuroscience was about. And then a number of amazing things that happened to her because of this had to do with like how she was charged up by all the stuff that came back to her. When you can take a scientific field and touch average people with it, then you get like experiences and you get your own data. And she found like an instance of something super rare that like only been found 3 times, and she found it. And so this whole notion of instead of saying I'm going to jam computer science down your throat until you become a clone of me, which that's kind of what we do in college, is I'm going to jam my topic down your throat until you think just like I do. The goal is not that. It's to take the joy of each of the disciplines that we have and bring the joy of the discipline forward and change a life arc. I'll tell a little story about this. A woman that I met about 5 weeks ago in Milan, Italy. She was a grown-up. I don't know how old she was, mid-30s, maybe early 40s. And she was a secretary. That's what she was. And she had a full-time job. She was doing really well. Maybe I don't know if she had a family or not, but she was kind of all grown up, right? She was embedded in her career, doing fine as a secretary. And she wanted to move towards technology. So how exactly would you move from I'm a secretary to I want to learn something about data mining or something about technology? So she took my Python class, and she got a certificate, and then she applied for a job as a secretary at a technology company. Right? She hadn't learned enough to become a computer scientist. I hadn't jammed computer science down her throat. But she demonstrated that she was not just a secretary. And so they hired her, and were really excited because among all the secretaries, she's the sort of most technical secretary they'd ever seen, even though she'd only had 1 Python class. And so now her arc, my class didn't say, oh, change your job completely, but it let her start a path, which will probably have to be augmented by other things, so that she gets to choose her arc. And I'm more of a magnet than the source of a bunch of knowledge. And my magnets sort of bend lives in ways we can't imagine. And that's the one thing I learned when I talk to all these students, is the extent to which these free things we do are contextualized in ways we can't imagine. But that's okay, because we're just sharing what it is that we love and care about, and people take from that which they need in their life at that moment. And that's the beauty of it. We don't have to know in advance the thing we're trying to do. It's like there's no curriculum committee that says, here's the learning objectives of your course, right? and somehow these learning objectives add up to a job. No, it's not like that at all. It's more, here is some stuff, take of it what you will, do with it what you will, and change your life the way you want your life to change. And we're just giving you a gift that I have no idea if it's useful to you or not, but lots of people find it useful, and I'm happy about that.
That's awesome. I have a little block on my shelf that says life isn't about finding yourself, it's about creating yourself. And I think you've definitely done that in your career. I know you said you were just in the right place at the right time. I think that's crazy that you've invented all these really cool things and you did it. Nobody did it for you, or maybe right place, right time is helpful, but if you hadn't done it, it wouldn't happen, just like that gal in Italy. If she hadn't done your course on Python, this opportunity wouldn't exist for her. So
you're absolutely right. Luck favors the well-prepared. I mean, all those things that basically say somehow the right people end up in the right place and the right choices, and destiny works out well for people who start with open minds and try things. And I look at my whole career and I go back 35, 40 years, and I was doing things that are perfect preparation for what I need right now. But I wasn't planning on doing what I'm doing right now. But that education that I got and the experiences that I had are perfect, and I get to reuse them.
So cool. So can I go back? I have to go back to the book chapter and ask, you talked about the feelings of isolation and really shutting down that class, but then there was kind of this next step where you had the gap, right? They were seeing you and they were knowing you, but you didn't really know them, so you kind of take it to the next step, which is that it's almost like a Facebook or discussion forum.
Yeah, I unfortunately never got to build that, right? I wanted to build that. I asked the National Science Foundation for money to build that. I saw that effectively in 1998. I thought that a Facebook-like application with avatars and real-time streams would be a way to build community among people. I wasn't necessarily saying I'm going to make $1 billion and make a thing like Facebook. I was like, this will satisfy my need to see student activity, right? And it's really faces moving up. And you look at learning management systems, and avatars next to announcements, to me, are like 1,000 times more cool than just a list of announcements. And it's such a simple concept. And so I wanted to build this. I wanted to build this just so that I could watch. These days, I do things like run Google Analytics and see what countries everybody is from, and like, oh, there's little things, and pop up comes another one, and there's one in India, little things pop up, and so that satisfies. I don't get to see their faces. It would be cool if I could see their faces in Google Analytics. I see like a face popping up from India and a face popping up from Saudi Arabia. I mean, that is again scratching that need, that itch of me saying what's going on and who's going on in my class, so that it's worth every week for me to be involved in that class.
Yeah. You need to make that.
I tried to make a learning management system. That was the Sakai project, and I thought that I would be able to solve all humanity's problems, but unfortunately no one ever gave me enough money nor resources to write the fun stuff, and all we ever did was write like a testing engine in a fine piece of software, but we met all the boring needs of the faculty rather than the exciting needs of the faculty. I mean, we'll see if I get bored enough. I mean, I still am not outrageously excited about any of the learning software that I use. Not Sakai, not Canvas, not Moodle, not Coursera. I've never seen anything that is as good as the thing that I put I've never seen anything as good as the screenshot that I put in an NSF proposal in 1998. Maybe I'll just be able to win the lottery and then spend a year and just build the thing that I want to build without having to sort of meet any customer requirements of all the 30,000 other faculty that want to just upload files and do what they've always done.
Well, I should tell you, in the course in Canvas for the Human MOOC, we're actually using video in the discussion forums. So we do get to see each other and hear each other and connect a little differently than just the text-based discussion.
Oh, good. Yeah. I should take a look at that.
Yeah. Okay, so you talk a little bit about the personal feel of video, and since that this whole next week is focused on instructor video, instructor introductions, and connecting with students, instructor presence mainly, can you share kind of some simple tips, because you think about your goal as an instructor. You've gone from regular kind of ordinary class sizes, which some of our folks in the MOOC are teaching, and want to be able to apply these strategies to those. But you're headed on the trajectory to be teaching 1 million students soon on Coursera. And so maybe we can go back to some basics, some of those fundamentals that you use now but worked then too.
Well, the first thing is the number doesn't go from 80 students to 1 million students. When I go to a Coursera class, to me the number goes from 80 students to 1 student, right? Because when you're recording the lecture, you're really talking to 1 student. You're not talking to 1 million. You're not sort of like Bon Jovi or U2 in the middle of a football stadium and everyone just singing the song like, you're singing the song, you just put the microphone out and everyone sings the song. It's not a rock concert, even though there are more people in my class than there are at a Bon Jovi rock concert, or a U2 concert, right? But it's not a concert because everyone is watching me full size, talking to them explicitly. And so I like to use Johnny Carson as my perfect example of how to teach, right? And if you compare Johnny Carson to Jimmy Kimmel, you felt like when you talked to John, I mean, of course, most of our people on this thing are too young to know who Johnny Carson was, but he's on YouTube somewhere, okay? But they won't get the idea that every night Johnny Carson would come into your room after the news, and Johnny Carson would just be another member of your family, just sitting around. You're on the couch, and there's Johnny Carson coming from this little glowing thing, but it was as if Johnny Carson was in the room with you, and just, Burt Reynolds would show up, or the guy with the koala bears would show up, and the koala bears would crawl on Johnny Carson's head. And you always thought that the koala bears were in your living room, and Johnny Carson was in your living room, and the koala bears were crawling on your head in the living room, and you always felt that. Compare and contrast that with Jimmy Kimmel. I like Jimmy Kimmel's show, but it's completely different. Jimmy Kimmel is all about being better than you. He's cool, he's super talented, and he will tell you that every single day that you watch the Jimmy Kimmel show. As a matter of fact, if you go on the Jimmy Kimmel show as a guest, he's probably going to engage you in some kind of competitive singing activity or throwing a baseball or whatever. And so that's where I go back to Johnny Carson. You're trying to make someone feel like you're talking to them, not be better than them, and that's it. So that's the first goal. The goal is you're talking to one person, and they're not a threat. They're not a big group of people, and you got to make mistakes, and you got to be yourself. We faculty member have gotten to be who we are because hopefully we're a little bit articulate. Hopefully we can hold a conversation, hold a thought. We're reasonable public speakers. Who we are is reasonable. We don't all need like super white teeth with like enamel fixes on them or anything like that. We don't have to have hair transplants just to be a teacher. It's okay to have like a receding hairline and my hair sticks up, because that's just kind of the day I had, is my hair sticking up. And it's okay, and we got to embrace who we are, because we are awesome people in our diversity, and who we are is really important. Trying to be somebody else is not. So the next thing has to do with eye contact with the camera. And the answer is, think about how you teach in the real world, and do you keep eye contact with your student every second of every lecture? And the answer is no, we don't. We're not capable of doing that. We're not CNN anchors, and we shouldn't pretend to be CNN anchors. And you'll notice me when I talk, I'm always drinking a cup of coffee. People think that's because I'm an alcoholic, right? And that I can't make it through without a little vodka in my thing. But there's no vodka in my thing. But what I need is a moment to think, right? And so I'm like, oh crap, where am I on the slide? Wait a sec, grab some tea. And then what I'm thinking while I'm drinking tea is like, oh, I better fix this slide. Oh, that's right. What slide's coming up next? Oh yeah, that's okay. On this next slide, we'll see that the link layer connects very well to the physical layer, yada yada, and retransmission. And so if you then think back to how we teach in a room with students, we stop, we pause, we stare at the ground, we walk around, we take a sip, we give ourselves time to think. And And the worst thing to do is to think that that's wrong, to think that our need to take time to think to form a thought is somehow bad in a performance environment. In that somehow we've got to be like an actor, like Angelina Jolie, just delivering line after line after line, and it's got to be perfect, and they're going to edit it. No, don't edit it. Make mistakes, screw up, hit yourself in the head. I don't know, whatever. I do things like I put like wigs on sometimes. Some of that I got a little bit from Kirk Bonk. He's kind of like the expert in being insane on TV. I think maybe he goes a little too far. But be yourself. If you're funny, be funny. If you're not funny, then don't be funny. But let yourself be. Don't feel free to look at the screen. Feel free to look away from the screen. Feel free to spend a lot of time looking away from the screen because you're kind of figuring something out, right? You're figuring this thing out. It's not like you're failing when you're figuring something out. And the key is that there's a symmetry when you're a teacher between the teacher experience and the student experience. If you talk too fast, if you could somehow talk so fast, the students can't keep up. The very fact that we have to have some cognitive space and time while we're talking is the exact same space and time the students need to understand what we're talking about. And so it's not a flaw in teaching to pause. It's not a flaw in teaching to look away. It's not a flaw in teaching to kind of gather your thoughts for a moment. Because I believe when it's done right, that student is following each of those pauses or each of those sort of redirections or each of those reflections that you're doing as a teacher, and it's essential. And of course, if they're getting the material on Coursera, they just hit the plus, 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 and then you talk really fast. And if, as long as they're understanding, they can speed you up. What you shouldn't do is try to speed yourself up to be like a CNN anchor. And so that's it. And it's funny because we're getting a lot of people from media, real media, not just me who's a media hacker, and they want really good lighting and they want the teacher to make no mistakes and they want to edit stuff because they think it's television and they even think this like 7-minute thing, which I think is absolute crap basically. I mean, that the media, if you're watching a sitcom, 7 minutes is a long time. But I believe that 20 minutes is a much better time for a lecture segment. I mean, frankly, how can you even sort of get in a concentrated zone because you're actually learning, which is different than being entertained. And so, the notion there's got to be 7 minutes, you can't make mistakes, you got to keep your eye contact, you got to read a teleprompter. To me, those are all wrong. Kim Kardashian doesn't read a teleprompter, okay? She doesn't. And we love it. Snooki and JWoww and all those folks, they don't read teleprompters. They're themselves, they pause, they throw stuff at each other, whatever, and people can't get enough of it. And so we got to make it more on the reality show side, I think, than artificial silliness, not so good. Artificial, not who you are. Humor, just because if you're not good at being funny, then you shouldn't try to be funny. You should be yourself. We're all great teachers. We all have something to share, and we should share who we are.
Well, that was a perfect way to end our 30 minutes together on this Google Hangout. I took notes, so I was being real. And I've got be real, be human was number 1. Oh, yeah, you got yours too. Number 2 was eye contact, but also stop and pause and think. Number 3 was make mistakes. It's not failing, so it's okay. Don't hyper edit things. I had a chat with a professor and a student after a course ran recently, and the student said, I would have liked longer videos, which was an aha moment for me because we were really working hard to try to compress them. So I think you're right on there. And then connecting the instructor experience to the student experience, because as we go forward in the human MOOC, we'll be going from instructor presence to social presence, and those two really do connect. So right. I think it's a great point to make. So, well, Robin and Chuck, thanks so much. Hanging out with you for 30 minutes isn't nearly long enough. I could probably go another hour because this is a good conversation. But we'll wrap it up. And Dr. Chuck, we wish you good luck on Wednesday in your keynote at LAK 15. I hope it's streaming live so we can watch from work. But
yeah, I'm going to stream it, but I'm not going to let them record it. So you have to. I'm not going to let them record it. So if you want to watch the keynote, you got to watch it live. Because there's material on there that I don't have copyright clearance for, so I don't want it sitting around to get me in trouble.
Okay, very good. And where do we watch it live?
Oh, some LAC place, I guess. Go to
Okay.
LAC conference and find out.
Okay, we'll find it and we'll send it out to the Human MOOC folks so they can watch
Yeah.
too if they'd like. Well, thanks so much, you guys. This was so much fun, and I appreciate it very much.
All right, thanks.
Bye-bye.